You know, the fact that you decided to stay home with me for the next 2 hours and watch this turkey tells me a lot about you. Tells me you couldn't get a date.
This franchise may have got its start in the silent generation, but this is PopCon. I'm Victor, your Gen X host, and I love the Universal Monsters. The franchise covers a lot of ground, but started back in 26 with Phantom of the Opera. And just goes to prove that one generation's legacy is another generation's pop culture. The Universal Monsters will never go out of style, and their capture on the world's imagination will also never fade. Well, today I reveal a final figure that allows this adult collector to say this collection is complete. Well, here it is. Wait, you can't see it, can you? Put the wrappings on, put your robe back on. There it is. It's the Invisible Man, portrayed here by Claude Rains. When I mean portrayed, I mean depicted, basically depicted in the last few minutes of the film as a dead body. The dead body of Dr. Griffin as he reappears after being killed. Spoilers! I know, too late. You know, that is a big screen debut, even with not a lot of screen time, because The Invisible Man not only became a classic, but has created modern retellings, reimaginings, and remakings over the years. So this is it, Sideshow Toys Invisible Man. Let's take a peek at his package. All right, let's take care of one thing first. I do not have all the Sideshow Toys Universal Monsters of this line. I have all the Universal Monsters from Sideshow Toys from this line that satisfy my representation to complete the collection. My collection has a complete Series 1 and 2, and the Invisible Man is the only figure I have from their Series 3. My collection also includes one figure from Series 5, but it was vital to call this collection complete. Now, who could that be? As for the Invisible Man, he was nominally priced on the secondary market for having come out in 1998, but he is not always remembered as a top-tier monster. It had been a while since I was after him, and I just got caught up in so many other things. When my focus became completing this toy shelf, he became priority, and now I've closed out another collection. Well, there you have it. Like I said, it's from 1998, but it is that time. It's time to set him free. And there's something about opening an old toy, something that feels wrong about it. It's lived so long in its plastic blister case sarcophagus, but it's got to be done. And you feel like, well, if it's wrong, maybe it should be a very solemn experience. It's kind of nerve-wracking, but I got to open it. So there we go. It's happening right now. Let me peel back. Do you guys like the Universal Monsters? I have always been fascinated with them. It is exciting to know that these guys will soon all be together, but I want to get an up-close and personal look at him before I put them all together, and we can see the whole collection in its entirety, which you can see here with the extra translucent head. I think it's yellowed over time. We'll look at that a little bit closer, but you can see him with all the accessories, his books. You also can see, just like the rest of the Universal Monsters, a fantastic base for him to stand on. He is fairly posable, not completely. We'll talk about that in a minute because it's time for Carousel. Oh, before we continue, please like and subscribe, help out my channel, really appreciate it. Thank you. Released in 1933, nestled between The Mummy and The Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man is based on the H.G. Wells novel about a character who is only known as Griffin. He is obviously some sort of doctor, and we meet him just like this as he begins his descent into madness, or as tropes would be, a mad scientist. This getup is to establish the character and allows the audience to see him. All right, this collectible from Sideshow Toys comes with an excellent stand. Looks like a floor with a little area rug with the name of the Invisible Man and, of course, the actor's name and the year. Also comes with these great book accessories, green and red leather-bound book accessories, which are fantastic. But it's the detail in the costume, whether it's the wrapping, even the cigarette in his hand, and even the robe and the robe design. Very realistic. Now, it does come with the translucent head that looked yellow in the box and a little yellow here, but more clear as I look close. I don't know if it looks like Claude Rains, do you? Either way, you can pretend he's reappearing or disappearing, which really only happened once in the movie. When it comes to articulation, sure, they're articulate, but it is minimal. They may have it in their shoulder and their elbow and their wrist, but there's really only certain ways they can pose. The head moves back and forth for sure, and the only other thing is at the knee, You can rotate the feet a little bit further out or in for posing. That's it. Now, I've got to talk about the leading lady. This is Gloria Stewart, who plays like the fiance love interest in the movie. Gloria Stewart is very famous in modern times as Rose, the old Rose in Titanic. That's right, this woman was around in the 30s as a beautiful blonde siren, and then again in the 90s. Now that's legacy. You can switch the head fairly easily. It was a little tough at first, but it worked out. But I don't like it. Looks up all the time, and it's not good. Although he is completely covered head to toe to hide his invisibility when naked, of course. These special effects were mind-boggling at the time, and though there is plenty of murder, the movie has also got dark comedy, light humor, and comes across more as a thriller most of the time. Don't you think it's time to check out the rest of the band? As I promised, the group in its entirety. Let's go one by one in theatrical order and see the rest of the Sideshow toys that make up my Universal Monster representation. Starting in 1926 with the Phantom of the Opera, the silent film is considered more superior version than the color talking version starring, ironically, Claude Rains. Here we have Frankenstein's monster from the 1931 film. Just to let you know, the figures don't always hold up over time. They are incredibly detailed, but not very articulate, and as you move them, they do seem to break easily. This has a broken torch, and I've glued some of his limbs on often. Many of these characters have lost their limbs, but that just seems really par for the course for this guy, who was stitched together from many other parts. Dracula also came out in 1931. He's one of my favorite characters. I even love the bat on a stick here. They captured a moment that brings me right to the film. The original Mummy came out in 1932. Can you believe he is played by the same actor as the Frankenstein monster? This memorable look is only for the opening sequences of the movie, and there is so much going on off screen here. You really feel that they must have scrimped out on the budget, and I'm not sure why. Actually, the Brendan Fraser reboot is an exceptional retelling of this story. Well, here he is, the Invisible Man, who debuted in 1933. There would be 4 Invisible Man movies, each one more dark than the previous. And then in 1935, The Bride was a fantastic sequel to the original film. However, like the OG creation, I would have liked to have seen her do some uncontrollable killing to make her even more terrifying. Maybe they will, in a really good reimagining of the story. This Wolfman in 1941 is one of my favorite films to pop in and watch. These vintage stories may not have all the detail that today's films have, but they certainly also don't have the running time, and they get to the point. And finally, in 1954, the Gill Man appeared in the first of 4 Creature from the Black Lagoon movies. Honestly frightening in some parts. This does a great job of atmosphere, and again, one I love to pop in and play in the background. And while you're watching, you will probably note that it was filmed for 3D audiences, because there are some moments that definitely strike you as 3D. So what do you guys think of my Universal Monsters collection? I love that franchise. There's something about them. They're really just sort of the forefathers. I mean, I know movies are grosser and gorier and scarier, of course, but none of those films would have been around without these fan favorites, these classics to begin with. And these freaks were frightening people to fainting in the theaters back in the 30s, the 40s, and even the 50s. So I told you that all of my collection come from Series 1 and Series 2, except for one of them. So Sideshow Toys had 5 series of these figures, and the one of them, to make my 8, was the very last one to come out with, which is pretty surprising because he's a big baddie. Did you guys guess who it was? He's from the early days. Yeah, it's Dracula. Yeah, it's pretty surprising to know that one of the biggest horror icons or villains in the Universal Monsters, Dracula, was the last for Sideshow Toy to come out. And as the story goes, it's because it took so long and it was very difficult to get the likeness of Bela Lugosi. Well, whatever the reason, I do have him, and I didn't get him last, but I've got him in the collection. My last one goes to, of course, Griffin, the Invisible Man. So now I have all 8 of the Universal Monsters as I want them. You guys see that to me is the epitome of the Universal Monster collection. And there's other monsters, and Universal made tons more, but that doesn't matter. Like I said, this is my collection. I specifically represent, and now I'm done, my collection of Universal Monsters. They will probably outlive me. So what do you guys think of them? Well, you other adult collectors out there, how do you feel about getting a collection complete? Do you ever do it? I have now. So far, I've had my Thundercats collection is complete, unless that same toy company comes out with some other characters that I want. And as for my Universal Monsters, these are an old Sideshow Toy thing, so I have them all now. And it feels very satisfying. It feels good. Like, I've got to collect the rest of these on my toy shelf of favorite franchises made famous in the 80s. or the 1930s and 40s as the Universal Monsters go. Do you guys collect the Universal Monsters? What do you got? There's so many great toys that have came over the years for these characters, but it's been wonderful. And you know what else is wonderful is when you click like. If you like this content, please click that like button, and of course click subscribe, because it'll really help me out. If you have already done that, I really appreciate you, and thank you for being here at PopCon. A salute to all pop culture, but mostly the 80s. Check out PopCon for other great content, especially great Halloween content coming your way. Until next time.